All right, John, should we get this show going?
Let's do this.
All right, John.
All right.
We are here for the Labor Day edition of the podcast.
Happy Labor Day, man.
Happy Day of Labor.
Day of Labor.
Yeah.
Day
nice.
off. Day off of labor.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to have a job where I do have that day off. I know not everybody does. When I was in food distribution sales, that was it wasn't a day off.
That's because people got to eat, man.
Yeah. And so those ones, actually, it was a more annoying day of work because
because people got to eat.
Well,
more so on a holiday.
And some of our vendors were closed. So like normally where you could go and do an add-on, like all the delivery schedules for our own incoming shipments for people's like inventory would get all messed up. It was just a giant, it was so annoying. It was an extra like annoying day. So now these last few years, I've been fortunate to have like these days off.
Nice. So, do you know what Labor Day is about?
Nope.
I just was thinking, genuinely was just thinking I don't either.
I think it was just like a day off.
What
one of the presidents.
What I would love is a friend of ours or a listener who doesn't have to immediately go to Google to say obviously, guys, this is what Labor Day is. Do you know what I mean?
You gave me whenever I go to like wish somebody, hey, have a great Labor Day weekend, I always get that little panic in my head that it's like, or is this the Memorial Day one? And then if I say it wrong, does that mean I don't support the troops? Does that mean I don't like?
Dude, the one thing that I can rely on is there are more than enough people out there who will correct me and make sure that, like, you know what I mean? If it's like Memorial Day and you're like, thank you for your service, there's 999 assholes lined up to be like, this is about the people who gave it all so that you could have some, and you know what I mean? And it's like, God, I feel like such a jerk, but that's right. I mean,
but you're a veteran. You get to say that though, don't you?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Carte blanche. See, I can't say that.
It's that group, right? It's the veterans, that it's like Veterans Days for veterans, Memorial Days for the ones that lost their lives. And so I have confidence that, if I botch something, there's going to be a line of people to say, this is where you messed up. It's like we've taken the grammar Nazi concept to a whole new level with our culture today.
Yeah. So on a totally unrelated note, but kind of not, I get really annoyed at like when they play the national anthem and people put their hand over their heart.
Why?
It's not the Pledge of Allegiance, John. It's a song. You're not pledging anything. You put your hands at your side. Okay.
I put my hand over my heart.
You listen to the song with reverence and respect. I'm not like, this isn't about disrespecting the national anthem. This isn't, well, if you don't like our anthem, then you go Canada. Like, I'm just saying, what are you pledging? Oh, say, can you see? Like, no, it's, I pledge allegiance, like cross my heart and hope to die. That's why we do that. So no, it's literally just know
it's out of respect and honor. I 100%, I'll be at a sporting event or wherever, I will take my hat off and I will hold my hat over my heart. Every time.
Pledging to nothing.
Honoring the anthem of our nation.
So crossing my heart.
And furthermore, how dare you?
That the ramparts red cleave. Those bombs bursting in air, all that crap. I pledge to those bombs. So just know, like, is it? Yeah, next week. Next week I'm going. No, it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks I'm going to a Seahawks game. First home game with the crowd, like regular season.
Yes,
it's gonna be off the hook. We're excited. We're taking Judah, who's huge Seahawks fan.
Yeah.
And just know that when they do the national anthem, while many people are still like debating and arguing over the kneeling, not kneeling, I 100% will be standing there with my hands at my side,
Sure.
judging everybody with their hand on their heart.
I will tell you this.
I'll be going, you don't know, like, because they clearly don't understand the difference between a pledge and a song. And I'll be like, idiot, idiot, idiot. They don't listen. They don't listen. They don't pay attention. They don't pay attention. And my wife's always like, stop it.
Sometimes
like,
I'll do the hands clasped behind the back.
Yeah.
Or in front even. Coming from, the Marines, we stood at attention. Dude, you get the national anthem, you get the Marine Corps hymn, you are in uniform, standing at attention or saluting the flag if you're outdoors and all that.
Okay.
Now I don't stand with my hands at the side because I feel awkward. I'm not in uniform.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm in civilian clothes. And so I look around. This is actually really funny. I didn't know you felt this way because I've never articulated this. Now I look around at the people that are like standing at rigid attention, like facing the flag. And I feel like they're like boots. Like you're this young, dumb, motivated veteran that, like, chill out, dude. Chill out. Chill out. Put your hand over your heart like the rest of us and stop looking like such a boot.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like,
and you're like locked at attention, hands at your side, and you're judging all the people with their hands over. That's hilarious.
So what's funny is if we're at a ball game together and we're probably standing there totally judging each other.
Out of the corner of my eye. Oh God. Nick's one of these hands at his side guys.
Like look at this guy. He's pledging allegiance to an anthem.
Here's what I think that we can all agree on. I can't stand the people that don't stop, period. Right? Like,
what do you mean?
I was at a baseball game a couple months ago with the family, and the national anthem came on, and everybody stands up, and everybody's doing one or the other, hand over the heart, hand to the sides, whatever, but they're all standing. And then you see like the group of 3 old people just walking like with their hot dogs, looking for their seat, and just, and it's like, you don't see literally everybody around you completely frozen. And like, there's just zero respect, zero
put some
acknowledgement
respect on that flag.
That's right. And so I think is above, we can all jump on that bandwagon.
Okay. So even the pledgers. Okay.
At least they're trying.
The boots.
They're doing something. Yeah, that's right.
At least,
that's right.
Still, even whichever side you're on, whether you're on team stand at attention or team pledge allegiance,
pledging.
Okay. Team pledge. All right. At least both of these teams are better than team no stoppers.
That's right.
I think we can all come together in unity.
Dude, we're solving problems left and right today, man.
We're going to bring world peace. This podcast.
Labor Day special. Next problem.
We are solving world peace here. It's just fine. Let's all the people like the most like contentious, like we need to get like the Proud Boys and Antifa together find somebody for them to make fun of.
That's
together. Okay. And then if they do that, then it's good. Right. Then we can go back to like having a picnic in Portland.
Isn't that sad though?
Although you might still get pooped on. You might still get pooped on.
We need like an alien invasion in order for the human race to come together and find commonality. That's sad. That's just too bad.
Find commonality in like, just humanity.
That's right. Like, oh, hey, maybe we are all kind of similar. You know? Well, I guess we could be friends. These aliens are trying to kill us now.
No matter what our viewpoints are on how much taxes corporations and rich people should be paying, we all agree. I wish I was paying less.
I'm all for taxes. I just want somebody else to pay them.
Right? Exactly. Remember our old friend Rocky?
Yes.
I've been able to put a little positive peer pressure on him and get him back into the CrossFit box, and we've been able to work around.
I'm surprised he needed peer pressure. I feel like Rocky was a like hardcore CrossFitter.
I mean, he started the gym and owned it.
Okay, exactly. Right.
I don't know if he still has an ownership stake or if that got, how that all worked out. So when he left teaching to go full bore into pursuing being a longshoreman. So his dad was a longshoreman.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
he got in
I
that
didn't
like
remember that. So sorry. I remembered him being a teacher. I guess it's been a long time since I've hung out
yeah.
with Rocky. So he
So
became a longshoreman.
yeah, and so he was in like the C group, and he was a casual, and so
Okay.
basically he had to go to like the Union Hall 3 times a day to
Yep.
see if there were any scraps left out. So they just
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up table scraps basically,
Yep.
and so like he would get stuck because you
I've
gotta
heard
pay your
that
dues.
process can be brutal. But
Yeah. And so he said like there was a stretch where he worked 44 days in a row, 12-hour shifts.
hmm,
And it's like, just friends stop inviting you to hang out.
right.
Like, and so
Right.
that's been like a few years that he's been
Okay.
doing that.
I was gonna say it's
Um,
been a while. So that's yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I didn't know how longshoring worked. I didn't know any of the terminology.
Mm,
But apparently, as people retire and or maybe they need, to bring more. So
okay.
what they did, John, was they took those casuals, that C group, they promoted some of their seamen, and they were able to actually plug Rocky in the B hole. So now he can come and he can throw his snatch around my box at the
Around
gym
in your
there.
box.
So yeah,
That's
at the CrossFit box. And so that's why he's able to
so
come back now.
so Rocky getting plugged in the B hole
Yes.
was great because it freed him up to throw some snatches around in your box.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Okay,
And John,
perfect.
with any luck, I mean, he went from being a seaman. Okay.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
they plugged him into the B hole. And with any luck, John, someday he's also going to get plugged right in the A hole. So,
It
and
sounds
then
like
he'll
the
and then he'll
goal.
have first choice.
I was gonna say it sounds like that's the ultimate goal is to get plugged in the a-hole if you're a longshoreman. Right? Okay,
100%.
that matches what I would expect, not only for longshoremen, but for also a CrossFitter.
I
Right?
can't believe I
So
made it. I can't believe I made it through that bit with as much of a straight face as I was able to pull off.
well, Rocky, congratulations, man, on getting plugged in the B hole.
Yep.
And I'm gonna be pulling for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be pulling. I'm, I'm gonna be pulling with the thought that one day you get plugged in the a-hole.
Right in
That's
the A-hole, John. That's what he wants. Because those are the ones that get to take first choice.
That's the bell of the ball right there, man.
That's right.
You're
I was bugging. So I started like texting him. I was like, hey, weird thing. I got back into CrossFit and yet you're not here. And you're the
Right.
jerk that got me hooked on this stuff.
Right.
And so then he was telling me, he's like, I should be able to soon. I think I'm gonna get moved up. And he says, B hole. I'm getting moved up to the B hole. And
Perfect.
I'm like,
You're like, wait.
they're plugging you in the
They're plugging you in the B-hole?
yeah. And he's like, yeah, none of these are new jokes, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. They're just
Fair
new
enough.
to us. It's like,
Yeah.
but you guys are the ones using the terminology. At some point, right? Somebody could just change it. You guys could change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been good to
Okay.
longtime friend of the podcast.
Yes. And glad to hear he's doing well, man. You know? All right. Anything else this week for you?
What no, I mean just that.
Okay.
Yeah. What's new with you? What's going on with the fam?
A couple of funny little things happened this last week. I should have sent you a photo of it so that we could put on the podcast, but we would have had to put like a sensitive content warning on it. So one random night, we had the kids upstairs playing in their rooms before bed so that we could get a little bit of a mental break from the yelling and the horseplay that kids will do or want to do. Liam comes downstairs. Ashley and I are both sitting in the living room quietly. Liam comes running downstairs and he says, Harper's choking upstairs.
Oh no.
Because they all had snacks. So she's upstairs choking on a snack. So I'm out of the chair, running up the stairs. Don't know what I'm going to walk into, right? On the way up the stairs, as I'm running and I'm in my bare feet, I stub my big toe on one of the steps. And it just happens, you don't, I felt that I stubbed my toe, but whatever. I'm going to try and potentially save my daughter's life. I get into the room and she is crying. You could see the tear face and she's shaken up and scared. but it seems I don't see panic. And so I knelt down and was like, Harper, can you talk? And she says, yeah. And I said, okay, all right. So like I'm hearing you talk, you're fine. And so then Liam gets upstairs and he's scared. And it was like, okay, guys, you said she was choking. Did she eat something and it made her cough? And he said, yeah, she was coughing. And it was like, okay, well, if you can cough, you can breathe. So like she's good, but you
Yeah.
did the right thing. Thank you for coming and getting us. I'm glad everybody's okay. Gave hugs, and it's like, all right, you guys keep playing and sit up or stand up, whatever when you eat, because she was like laying down, apparently eating a chip. Start leaving the room, and I look down. My foot is completely like my toes are covered in blood. And I was like, okay, well, and I could feel it's like wet, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now that sensation is starting to show up, that I wasn't feeling earlier. And so I hobble downstairs and I get on the counter with my foot in the sink, and I'm looking at it, and I hit my big toe on the stair so hard that it basically knocked the nail back off. And so the
Oh.
nail, my big toenail, I can move it, is hanging on at the cuticle, basically. Um, and so I'm looking at it, and Ashley's like about to throw up and almost passing out. She's like, I can't, like, stop. And I'm like moving my nail, and she's like, "Whoa," like, stop, I can't. And she's, I was like, babe, will you get some clippers and pliers? And I ended up pulling off the rest of my nail, and it started just bleeding everywhere. I got pictures of it. It's kind of cool. Um, and then I just stuck it under the sink, and I like rinsed it all out, and then I put some stuff on it, and then I bandaged it all up. And then, that was okay. That lasted for about an hour, but then my toe was like throbbing
Mm.
and in a lot of pain. And I was like, okay, something's not right about that. So I took the bandage off and looked, and there was a like corner, it looked like a thorn almost, of my nail still crammed in on the side. And so I
Oh.
got the pliers and I yoinked that out,
Oh.
and then it was better. And dude, like, again, bandaged it up, cleaned it up. I cleaned it up the next day, bandaged it, and I want to say 24 hours later, it's fine. And now,
Oh,
I mean,
jeez.
my toe doesn't hurt at all. It kind of like bounced right back. But yeah, that was something that happened that was a little unexpected.
Dude,
So,
I used to get ingrown toenails on my big
yep,
toe, like
yep.
in college all the time. It's probably because I didn't have like toenail clippers, and I was probably just like ripping
I
them
don't
off
know, man. I
and they
wonder how
grow
much of
weird.
that
But
is just like genetic though, because I had to go to the doctor and get they basically cut that out because of
oh,
that as
okay.
well. Ingrown nails.
Well, dude, I used to just take a pocket knife and just dig that sucker out myself.
Dig it and clip it.
Just and get
Yep.
that thing to like pull it up. And I remember doing that one time. And of course, I'm like not cleaning the pocket knife, right? This is
Yeah,
20
yeah,
year
yeah.
old. I'm invincible, like,
Yep. Yep.
infection. What's that?
That's right.
And I remember digging that out one time. And my roommate, we were in these tiny little like dorm rooms. And he's just like, oh, like, oh my gosh, I can't. Oh, and he like gets up on his bed. He just like puts the
That's
pillow over his head. I'm just like,
yes.
just doing some back alley surgery.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, a buddy of mine, growing up, especially in high school days, we cared way too much about the appearance of like being the tough guy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I remember specifically, he genuinely was one of the toughest guys that I've ever known. But there was one time it cracked me up. He had a hatchet, and he was in a tree in his backyard cutting branches out of his tree. He just, killing boredom, because that's what we do when we were kids back then, before the internet. And he had a branch in one hand and swung down with the other, and it like cut into the side of his hand.
Oh.
And I mean, it was a mess, but he full on was like, just put some duct tape on it. And he did. He put duct tape over this like huge, gouge in his hand, and then it got infected. And he ended
Oh.
up like, full on. You got to go to the hospital. You got to get, medicine and all this stuff. Now they have to clean it up and do it the right way. And it just cracked me up. It's like we're we're so dumb, concerned about being the tough guy. Like, yeah, just give me duct tape. I'm gonna throw that on. It's like, no, dude, your thumb is hanging off. Like, yeah, well, just duct tape it up. You're good. Nope. Now you have an infection. So I don't know.
What you mentioned something about Ashley's foot.
Yes.
We had talked about this in the past. And so it's been a rough week for like Simmons' feet.
Yeah, something's going on with our feet, man. So I'm sure those of you regular listeners, you remember the story about Ashley. Her foot has been hurting for a long time, and she used that as an opportunity to tell me how fat and disgusting I am. The whole, like, I know I'm fat, but your feet don't hurt. So that was the comment. She had a checkup this last week, just a normal doctor visit, I think annual, like, check in, make sure everything's okay. And she brought it up that her foot has been bothering her, and they did an x-ray, and she has a fractured foot. She actually has like a fracture on her foot. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that foot can't support. I don't know. I don't know
She doesn't know how she got it. Like, she didn't drop something.
No, there's no. It's been hurting for a really long time. She said, for like
she didn't stub her foot on the stairs running up.
That's right. She said months. That it's been hurting for months, and so who knows? All I can say is she's genuinely one of the toughest people that I've ever known.
She full on pressure washed your fence with a broken foot.
That's right. Yes. She was out there for hours just pressure washing. She mowed the other day. She'll just take on things and knock them out of the blue, but like hardcore projects. And then just complain at the end of the night, like, man, why is my foot bothering me?
Yeah.
It's
been fractured for a month and not healing.
That's right.
So they put her like in a walking boot, or
I don't know. I don't know if she was supposed to get. I mean, I know she's not been wearing one, but I don't know I don't know what the
They just said, "Yep, your foot's fractured. Have a nice day."
Right. Yeah. There's a very good chance if she's supposed to be wearing something, she's just choosing not to. and so I don't know if that means like it's going to just keep hurting, or if it's, and maybe they talked about that. Maybe it was something like, well, it'll heal, but it's going to take a while. And so she's like, okay, whatever, I'll just deal with it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that one is, which makes me feel like I'm a bad husband because I didn't
haven't even checked.
What's messed up is, dude, I mean, now that we're talking about it, I didn't even ask these questions. I didn't. She was like, yeah, doctor did an x-ray on my foot today and I have a fracture. And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when you go
grocery shopping, when you go grocery shopping,
that's right. Hey, when you're at the store later, will you get,
if you get peanut butter, get crunchy.
That's what.
Sorry about the foot.
That's I didn't even say sorry about the foot.
Can you get mesquite lunch meat? Mesquite turkey lunch meat this time, though.
That's right. That's right. No, you got the ham last time, but I want the honey ham for the sandwiches. So I'm not saying what you did last time was wrong. I'm saying it could be better, and I'd like you to try and be better.
Yeah. Sorry about
you're
your
at
foot.
the store later today. And that's, I mean, wow. I mean, what a place for me to realize that I have a lot of improvement I could make as a
which, John, if we were gonna say is the overall theme of our podcast, it's all about self-improvement.
It's all about self-improvement. That's right.
Just airing all of our flaws out there for other people's entertainment.
I'm gonna walk in the other room and just give her a hug. You know what? I'm sorry. You do better.
For everything.
For everything. She just breaks down. It's like, oh God, this is a real thing. This has been pent up. All right. Oh, too funny.
Yeah.
So that was our week, man.
So she's got a broken foot. You got a busted toe.
I got a busted toe.
And
you know what?
Neither of you are going to check in on each other to see how the healing process is going. And that's okay.
The deck got finished. It got stained. The fence was stained. Good. Everything looks great. Our furniture's back out there. It all looks really good. Yeah. I mean, and we just move on. Move on with our lives.
Oh man. So we got some listener mail
I was gonna say
week
I
anyways?
think we got a lot of feedback
Okay.
this week, and I'll say this. I don't know what your thoughts were on it in seeing all the listener mail. Um, we've always tried to take a stance of like we don't want to necessarily dive into all of the real heavy topics of the political world, right?
Right,
Because
right, right.
I think the world does, like, our culture does that enough today,
There
and
and there's enough podcasts where
there's
it's
enough
just
podcasts that
weighing
do
in
that.
on politics and
That's and it's like the emotionally driven narrative on either side kind of sways, and everybody bounces around between those, and so it's like, well, if anything, if we're gonna have these opinions, um, usually they're gonna fall somewhere in the line of like pushing people to apply critical thinking. But what we found in that is it's maybe more fun at times. Not that we're not fun all the time, for us to just talk about things that aren't so serious. And then I saw all of the listener mail that we got. And I don't know what your thoughts were, but I found like our audience is saying, no, we want you to weigh in on these topics.
I think it's that a lot of our audience are people like us who are kind of a-holes, and they just want us to like not be employable in the future.
They're like, look, man, if I can't get a job, you can't get a job.
Yeah. They certainly want me to never be able to move into like some sort of like high profile position.
That's
We're
right.
certainly
That's
never
right.
running for politics.
No, 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 no. Um,
So
so
wait, let me throw up the listener mail screen. I made this like in 2 seconds. This is
yeah,
cheesy,
yeah.
but it's
No,
kind
this
of
is
on brand.
great.
Hey,
Boom.
it's time for listener mail.
That's
Dad,
perfect.
are you even listening to me? Or no. What was it? Is this the only way I can get through to you?
That's right. That's right.
Good old Zach
Oh
Morris
man.
and his dad.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So, all right, what do we got here?
All right. So the first one up, we have one of our good friends and fellow podcast listeners is our buddy Dave. And I'll leave last names out for all of these, but
Yeah.
Dave, he mentioned to us, he basically wanted us to weigh in on China's sissy men.
Oh, that's right.
So apparently China recently banned men from television in China and Chinese programs that they feel are not masculine enough,
Too effeminate.
too effeminate.
Yeah, I
And
read where the term when they translate it actually means like girly gunners. Like, apparently that's a put down. That's a put down.
Okay.
Uh
This I don't know. Maybe I've been living under a rock, but what's funny is I hadn't heard anything about this until he asked about it. He said China doesn't allow sissy men on TV any longer. Good or bad decision. Broadcasters must resolutely put an end to sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics, the National Radio and TV Administration said, using an insulting slang term for effeminate men. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but it means literally girly guns.
yeah, girly guns. That's
girly
it.
Guns.
So what's interesting about this is like, first of all, what defines effeminate? What defines sissy? Like,
Sure.
are they breaking that out?
I think we know, right? I think just being stereotypical, we know what they would mean by an effeminate, man.
I know, but it's like any of these things right now that we've talked about, like when you just say hate speech isn't
Sure.
free speech. Well, what defines hate speech? And then
yeah.
When you don't have some of those clear parameters, it's like, okay, don't get me wrong, like this to me is absurd.
I don't want to go off the rails here, but I would even also argue potentially, I mean, I'd want to do a little more research one way or another, but I would potentially argue the whole concept of hate speech isn't free speech. I don't know that that's true. Technically speaking, I think that hate speech could be. I believe when it comes to free speech, it's speech that incites violence that would then be. But a lot of people have this concept that you said something hateful against me,
right?
And
that's
no,
not
that is their freedom.
And I agree. I don't want to get off the rails on that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I would say about the China thing is, Okay, if I'm going to try and find a shred of like, okay, where's the logic in this?
Okay.
Here's what I would say, John, is if we had something like this in America, okay, we could have skipped the entire like Robert Pattinson Twilight era, and then we wouldn't be stuck with Robert Pattinson as freaking Batman, John. So I'm just saying, like, I don't get me wrong, I don't
Yeah,
typically
yeah.
side with China, and I don't necessarily side with them on this. I'm just saying,
You're saying
as an aside,
even in the, potentially most oppressive, socialistic government run like state, there could be a silver lining,
I'm just
which is
they're
that we
not.
avoid the entire Twilight saga book to movie,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
That's fair. That's fair.
which I just watched the entire thing with my kids. I was like, "Oh, these are good movies."
Um, man, he said good or bad decision. Um, I don't know. And I know that's not going to be an answer Dave likes. I don't know if it's a good or bad decision. I love that it's happening. Somebody's going to clip that right there. Hey,
I love that it's happening.
I love that it's happening.
Period.
I think it's
Johnson.
fantastic. I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. What I think this does is it's going to demonstrate. We're about to find out, right? If Hollywood is really
Line
an
in the sand.
advocate. That's a line in the sand. We're going to find out all of this push from Hollywood, from the left, the liberal entertainment industry, for the advocacy of the LGBTQ plus communities and the representatives and all of these things that have been happening, which I'm not saying I'm against, right? But those things, that huge push, we're going to find out, is Hollywood really an advocate for those communities and those topics, or are they an advocate for the almighty dollar? Right?
Exactly.
Are they an ad? Is it really just about capitalism and opportunity and
Yeah.
an audience?
I
And
love.
China, dude, China is a massive player in that industry. And so if they're going to start drawing lines in the sand, I don't think Hollywood's going to fight back, frankly. And so I'm interested to see what happens from that.
Yeah, I would say based on everything that we've seen of Hollywood and their willingness to stand up to
Did
China.
you?
I mean,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
this
Here we
right
go.
here. Marvel is censoring films for China. You probably didn't even notice. Like in
Yeah.
Doctor
Yeah.
Strange, the Tibetan monk was made into a white chick.
Yep.
And that was largely because they were concerned China would be upset. And I've heard that like movies get changed a lot for China. And you see
Because
how
China has a problem.
yeah, because they have
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
with Tibet claiming to be sovereign, or and they do this kind of stuff. I mean, we saw what was John Cena apologizing for recently
John Cena apologized because in an
in
interview
Mandarin.
or
He
something,
apologized in Mandarin too.
because in some interview or something, he referred to Taiwan as a country, and that pissed China
That's
off.
right. Yeah.
And yeah,
And these
it's
are the things like, so when you see this kind of stuff in the news, I'm like, look, is that right or wrong? That's a whole different culture. That's a whole different people group. And they've got different values or whatever. So I think it's always hard to like shove a Western, like another country's decisions and like cultures and values through our American like lens. It's never going to look normal to us.
right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. It's what they're doing. I know that China is oppressive. They literally just recently came out and said that kids can only play 3 hours of video games a week now.
Oh God, I saw that too.
And not
yeah.
on
And
school days.
no, it's only Fridays. It's the weekends and on holidays. But even on the days that they can do it, it's only from 8 to 9 p.m. 1 hour a day.
Yeah, and so what's weird is like you can simultaneously be like, I think that's too much oppression. I don't think that that's their place to say in my Western American worldview, and yet also simultaneously say, you know what though, those kids are probably going to be better off. When I think about how many students I had that like would be failing all their classes, you know, and especially right after a new video game release came out, kids would be they would literally miss school, and other kids would be like, yeah, he was up to like 2 a.m. playing the new release of whatever. And I'm like,
I want to make sure that I'm a little more careful and clear that I think socialism is wrong.
well, yeah, 100%, right? That's what I'm saying, though.
I'm not defending.
I'm like,
you know, this is also a place that just allowed adults to have. They just approved up to 3 children. It used to be capped at 2.
That's right.
You couldn't have more than 2 children, and now they've allowed 3. I think when we're talking about the differences between China and America, I'm talking about the differences between a socialist oppressive government versus freedom. Right. And I'm always going to choose freedom and 100%. Say that socialism is wrong.
But that's the funny thing is, like, I can 100% think socialism is wrong, and also think that kids probably would be better off if they played 100% less video games, right?
A lot of times in our freedoms, we're going to make really bad decisions. Yes. That's fact, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at a question of like, was this a good or bad decision? The reason it's difficult is because how do you answer if it's a good or bad decision when it's through the lens of an already socialistic oppressive environment?
100%. Yeah.
Right. Like
that's like, I once heard one of the administrators in my building had said, I wish Congress could pass a law that would not allow new video games to be released on school nights. Because we had so many kids would miss school.
I believe it.
And it's like, yeah, should we be making laws like that? You know, on a broad principle? I don't know. Would that help?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. So like the video game thing in China was kind of like, wow, that's super oppressive.
Dude, I said something when I saw the article about that, and Ashley was like, "We're not China." She's like, "I can't. You can't put those restrictions on me and then like go to work." And then she's like, "I'm the one that has to deal with it."
I know, right? Like, but yeah, so that and that's a whole separate aside than the banning the effeminate man. Is that good? That's for them. I don't know.
But that's what I like about it, because I think that this type of decision, it challenges the freedoms that we think we are operating under in America, right? We think we have this Hollywood elite, industry that is like the advocate for the underdog and pushing all of these, pushing the envelope in areas to allow people freedom of expression and to make what types of things were maybe outside the norm to more normalize them under the guise that that's a good thing. We need to normalize the what used to be considered abnormal. And I love that this challenges that, because I want to see, are we actually going to be free? Are we going to fight against that because and exercise the freedoms that we have? Or are we going to see Hollywood cowtail, basically, like bow to the dollar?
I think we know the answer to
I do too. I do too. And then it's like, okay, come on. Like, when are people going to wake up that this isn't the people you or in the organizations that are manipulating the narrative and that are pushing you to have a stance about something aren't your friends? They're after something else that, so
John, we know the answer to this, because this is the same Hollywood that's been like lecturing us normal like people about women's rights in like the most like hypocritical way, in the most exploitative, like the most gender pay gap, like the worst offenders at all of this.
That's right.
Over sexualizing women, of like,
and children,
casting couch. The whole concept of the casting couch is a Hollywood concept.
That's
like
right.
All of these things. And yet they continue to talk down at us at their award shows when they pat each other on the back. So like, do I have any like 100%. Hold out any hope that like this is going to be the thing where, Hollywood's finally like, you know what? Enough's enough. And we're not couching. Nope. 'Cause dollars.
That's right.
Yeah.
It would be, God, I don't want to say too extreme of an example. And my mind goes to such dark places. but they're the perpetrators, which is what you're saying, right? And so it's crazy. Like if I went and held up and robbed a liquor store, but then I'm going to get a platform and I'm going to talk like critique or chastise you as like we need to do a better job about not participating in these crimes. And you're like, dude, you're the one. You're the guy. I never
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
I never participated in that. Your whole platform is designed off of that, and you're going to lecture
No,
me
but
about it.
it would be even more so, John, would be if you were like robbing liquor stores, okay, committing crimes, and then lecturing me about it, but saying, and if you don't come and show your support for this cause, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, you're
If you're not
culpable. You are.
100%,
That's right.
yeah,
That's
right. If you're
right.
not 100% behind this, then you
Yeah.
know what? You are scum. And I'm like, wait, how did this get turned
Dude,
around on
I
me?
talked to somebody, not to go on too much of a tangent here, but I talked to a friend of mine about this, and she was this was back in the Harvey Weinstein, the Me Too era,
Oh
and
yeah.
how all this was, this was the new outrage, the thing. And please understand, I think that we should be outraged about
Yes.
it. But my point was we're getting to a stage, and it's like, I think that if you apply some sort of critical thinking to this, you can see that this is part of the plan, that there are people in power who are taking advantage of not only women but also children, and it's a disgusting environment, and it lives in Hollywood, right? um and they've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and it's part of their plan now to make this so overblown that it becomes believe all women, that
Oh,
it
okay. Yeah.
becomes now it's not just about the absolute people in positions of power that are abusing women and children, and those and men and those under them in authority, in disgusting ways, and we need to bring that to light. It becomes like, you didn't hold the door open for Jessica on the date that you had 10 years ago, and now she feels victimized as well, and you know what and it's like, no, we need to give attention to all of these things. And I remember she got really upset that I had this attitude, because it's like, no, she should have a platform. Like, she if she was victimized, we should listen to her. It's like, no, you don't get it though. When everything becomes the outrage, it ends up dying on the vine, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to, and what we're going to do is we're going to be so tired of every single example becoming this huge outrage. And like Chris Hardwick was an example that lost his job. He's back now, but at the time had lost his career because of something he supposedly did on a date that he denied. And this is how crazy that environment was. The A&E who fired him from his hosting gig at the time because of these allegations, they got so much backlash from fans that they went out and hired a third party investigative group that had no relation. They're like,
Hmm.
we invest money. We want you to dig into this case and find out what's true and what's not. After multiple months, 3 to 6 months of an investigation that this third party company did, they came back and said, we found zero evidence that any of this is true. And so A&E, citing those results of a multiple month-long investigation, hired him back to his gig. And when they hired him back, 3 executive producers from A&E that were part of that show who were female quit on the spot.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter. Like, the truth
Right.
doesn't matter. It's all about. And so my point was, when everything becomes this emotionally driven and everything is an outrage, then what happens is, when we move on to the next outrage, nobody in Hollywood that are actually manipulating, abusing, and taking advantage, nobody's being held accountable. We've just
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah, and
Like, we didn't change
all the
anything.
legitimate causes, all the things that, like,
Yes.
all the good things that were starting to come out of that just get
It's
overshadowed by the tsunami of just
right.
like, and then people just get listener fatigue,
Yeah.
and they just tune it all out, right? Like, oh,
Yes.
another,
Yes.
okay, whatever.
And it becomes very line in the sand, and it becomes, you're either on one side or the other, and you get all of the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness that comes from that, instead of us as people coming together and demanding that, no, we don't we don't change the subject, we don't widen the subject, we focus on the problem that we see here until we get answers to this problem.
Yeah.
And we don't demand that. We just move on to the next thing that the people in power tell us to be outraged about. So I'm excited based on all of that. Sorry, that was a long rant. Based on all of that, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. What's going to happen here from this, and how Hollywood responds and how people respond to that. So,
Well, I think what's more likely is you're going to be amused by the ways people avoid taking a stand.
that's yeah,
because there will be no stand, right?
That's right. That's
it's
right.
just it's fun to see, like, I see you dodging.
Yeah.
See what you're doing.
All right, so we'll go on to the next one here. We got a few here. The next one is from our friend Vinny, and he wants to know what our thoughts are on the Texas abortion law.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. We're. I hope you got your swimsuit on, because we're diving right in. We're diving right into some heavy, heavy topics.
I guess maybe I haven't been I don't follow Texas state laws. What is the Texas abortion law?
So this is a great question, and one I'm not super versed on. I'm not a lawyer by any means, and I've not done a ton of research. I've done a little bit of research, and in what I've found in the little bit of reading that I've done is the law essentially, I think they call it the heartbeat bill, or there's a part of the law that talks about that. What it seems to me is that technology today has found that you can discover a heartbeat really as early as 6 weeks of a pregnancy, which by all intents and purposes is often less time than most women even find out they're pregnant.
Yeah.
So that seems to be a big sticking point here.
Okay.
But what they're saying is that abortions are effectively illegal in the state of Texas, and my understanding is this is passed into law from the moment that a heartbeat can be detected, which is really as early as 6 weeks. So they've effectively banned abortions in Texas as a result, and furthermore, they've opened up the door for private citizens to sue other people for other people and doctors and I believe organizations, but doctors, the people, anybody involved in the actual abortion, if an abortion is done in the state of, and when I say anybody, I mean anybody. My understanding of this law is that if I'm suing somebody for getting an abortion, I not only can sue the woman who went in and got an abortion, I can sue the doctor that did it. I can sue the person who gave her a ride to get the abortion. I can sue anybody that loaned her money to pay for the abortion.
So what's the qualifier? Like, who can sue? Just anyone?
I think anyone.
Or is it like just the other people affected by the abortion?
I think anyone. I think this has become like a almost a Wild West scenario. But that part I could be wrong about. That part
if that's the case, I definitely don't like that. That is just,
well, sure.
I heard that Sally, got an abortion and nobody else has filed the paperwork, so I'm going to go sue.
That's right. I think we're sue happy already.
Yeah, you're going to see like new lawyer commercials. It's going to be like the new ambulance chaser.
That's right. That's right.
You
That's
heard
what
rumors of somebody getting an abortion.
But see, I want to be careful about that, because you're right. I think that could be the narrative that's pushed, and that part I'm not 100% on.
Yeah.
And furthermore, even if that's what it says, I would be very, very interested to see what the outcome of some of those lawsuits are going to be. Right?
If it holds up.
It could say and I don't know if it does. Again, I keep wanting to clarify. It could say anybody could sue anybody involved, but if you're that person and you're the ambulance chaser and you find out Sally went and got an abortion and her mom helped her and her dad gave her a ride, and you're going to now put out a lawsuit for the doctor, the Sally, her mom, and her dad individually, are you really going to be successful in that? And that's the thing. I feel like at a certain point we'll see if it even stands up, but yeah. outside of that though, I mean, what are your thoughts, Nick? What are your thoughts on the abortion law?
Well, so like I could always tell when I was teaching, I could always tell when, I don't know if it was English class or like civics. I don't know at what point, what class it was. I can't remember what class it was coming up in, when they'd start having like, they'd start working on like how to have actual structured, like not necessarily like a debate, not like Lincoln Douglas debate with,
Sure,
point
sure,
counterpoint, but like an actual, like, hey, we're going to take a philosophical stand on something and we're going to have an informed
sure.
discussion about it
Right.
with
Like
somebody who's,
for, against,
yep,
why,
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And see, and, and do some opposition research to understand their
Yep,
points.
yep.
And so, which was really, that was really good, right? Like, I know there's always a lot of outcry of teachers pushing their own beliefs and agendas on
Sure.
students. And that definitely does happen.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was cool because it was kind of like done in a, let's take a controversial topic, let's research it, and
Yeah.
let's work it out and learn how to still be friends after disagreeing afterwards.
Right.
And so it never failed when that part of the year was coming up. Students would always ask, Higgins, what's your point on abortion? And, always trying to be careful about what you can get into and what you can't. And I did not ever want to be one of those teachers that pushed my
Right.
beliefs on people,
Right.
except for the belief that if you pay full price for anything at JCPenney's, you are a moron.
Right.
That one I am happy to have pushed onto students and have them quote it back to me.
Yes.
But I would always start with just, is there any way to agree that I wish that there were less of them? Whether you think
Sure.
they should be legal or should be illegal, do we
Yeah.
agree that
What's the
I,
stance on
I
that?
certainly wish it didn't happen as often. Like
Right.
I wish that there weren't as many unwanted pregnancies,
Yep.
because even a legal abortion, there's still emotional fallout and baggage and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that men and women deal with. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably a lot more so with the women, but I mean, if there
Right.
was a man who wanted a child and the woman didn't, like, there's going to always be that, like, I missed out on this,
Oh,
fatherhood opportunity.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
there's going to be feelings with that. Right. And you
Yep.
can argue whether you think those are valid or not. That's whatever there. So it's like, it just creates a lot of emotional baggage. It creates so many issues. Growing up in a Christian household, and as a Christian, I do believe in the sanctity of life. I do believe that
Sure.
life is precious, that people are created by design, and that there's an overarching purpose for people's lives. I'm not qualified enough, because I've seen some of the things about like the heartbeat bills and the arguments
Yeah. Yeah.
against
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
that like it's a pseudo heartbeat. It's not an actual heart that doesn't get
Sure.
formed until later. Like, okay, cool. I am clearly not smart enough to make that
Sure.
delineation. Like, and
Right.
I'll concede
Right.
that. Like, okay. But I definitely, we talk about human rights, my body, my choice. And I'm like, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's potential. I love the way Bill Burr said it. He said, okay, whatever you believe about when life happens, we all agree that if you don't do anything, that thing is going to become a human.
Sure.
Right. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you didn't do anything, it becomes a human. So it does
Right.
seem like at some point we are altering a future life.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I don't love that. Right. And then you can say, well, yeah, but what about in cases? And then everybody likes to like list the most absurd, like the most, like the minority of the examples, right? Like the
That's right.
smallest instances of
It's
that.
the
And
it's the, so and so who was raped by her uncle at
sure.
13 and got pregnant, and like
Yeah.
what are we, we need to be
So
there for her.
So here's a couple of my initial thoughts. One, I do support states' rights.
Okay.
So meaning, like, while I don't love abortion, I don't like abortion, it's here, right?
Yeah.
And so even if you just outlawed it completely, that's not going to fix that's
right.
going to create other issues, right? And
That's right.
issues that we're not prepared to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
That if you just go, well, they could just put them all up for adoption. Like, there's already like an expensive, cumbersome adoption process. Like, we're not equipped to handle that. So if you just
Right.
like rolled Roe versus Wade back, there's still a lot of issues that need to be dealt with.
That's right.
That there's unwanted pregnancies, that there's people who financially can't care for children, like
Yep.
the healthcare, like there's all these other issues that I'm like, do we have to just distill it down to like this? Are you for or against abortion? Or like,
Right.
can we talk about some of these other things too?
I think all of the people, you bring up an interesting point. I think all of the people that would typically be very for the law that's been passed in Texas, right? They're like, yes, no, this is a good thing. They also would very likely be against sweeping gun control laws,
Sure.
and they would acknowledge and recognize that it's the criminals, right, who are committing the gun violence, and so creating these sweeping laws that would then just punish the people who aren't criminals doesn't stop crime from happening. It's the same type of thing. There's a problem here with these unwanted pregnancies in America today, and whatever all of the cases are, and a sweeping law that just makes this illegal doesn't actually address any of those problems
Yeah.
that exist.
It doesn't address that there's teenage girls who don't feel that they fear for their safety if they were to tell
Sure.
their parents they're pregnant. Like,
Right.
that's a problem. Like,
Right.
that's a problem.
Right. And I don't know that abortion's the answer, because I think like what you said is at the end of the day, can we all agree that we wish there were less? We wish
Mm,
there were less. I mean, I looked up very, very briefly, and a good number, even you're going to give or take, depending on the year, 100 to 200,000, but a good number is around 1 million abortions year over year in America for over a decade.
okay.
Right? Is that can we agree there should be less? You
Yeah, I
know,
wish there were. I
what's
wish
the
there were less.
likelihood that the emotionally driven narrative of, Sally, who was raped at 13 by her uncle, makes up, a large portion of those abortions, right? To me, it's very unlikely. I mean, I think we're talking, like you said, we're talking about the minority,
Yeah.
right? What is really behind these, and can we address the issues there? My stance on this, just to, I guess, our opinion on it, it really comes down to, like you've been discussing as well. At what stage do we consider human life,
Sure.
right? That's the argument. Okay, and maybe there's a difference, not maybe, there's a difference of opinion on when life is considered life. But whatever we end up determining, okay, at a certain stage, this is human life. At what stage does that human life inside another woman's body deserve advocacy? That, I think, is a critical question,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of women are saying, my body, my choice, but that's not what I think the other argument is, right? Nobody's challenging your choice for your body.
Yeah, they're saying, but
They're-
what about that body that's
that's right. They're
growing, right?
advocating for another human life that didn't ask to be born, that
Well, and
didn't
that's the
ask to be
problem.
conceived.
That's the problem with the majority of the polarizing political things out there, is that you
Right.
have people shouting about two different points, not two opposing points, two different points.
They
My
make
body, my choice.
it's the straw man. They
There's
they
that. There's a human inside of you. Yeah, but my body, my choice. And it's not saying no. It's, I disagree with your body, your choice. And
That's
it's
right.
not saying like, oh, I don't believe in that a little human that's growing in me should have any
That's
rights. They're
yes.
just arguing two completely different points and
It's
drowning each
the
other out.
it's the straw man logical fallacy, right? It's the I'm going to create my own. I'm going to create what I want people to think your argument is, and then I'm going to knock it down. But that straw man you created was not the argument.
Exactly.
And we're seeing that all over. I'm my social media today is inundated with memes and posts and comments, and this is why we don't usually get into these heavy topics, because I feel like we're so inundated with them already,
Yeah.
right? But there's things now coming out. I saw a post the other day, and it said something like, if a woman can get turned in for $10,000, oh, by the way, that apparently is the cap of damages that you could be liable for if you're sued. Okay, is so
10,000 total.
10,000 each. So I
Oh,
could see
each one,
if
each.
each person being sued can be liable for up to $10,000. And
Okay.
so they're calling it almost like now everybody's going to become Dog the Bounty Hunter, right? Going out and trying to get their $10,000 from anybody they can sue. But there's a meme now that I saw just yesterday or the day before, and it said something like, if the woman can be sued for $10,000, does the man who impregnated her have to pay the $10,000 as well? And it's like, you create these emotional responses that, in my opinion, they miss the point. They're ridiculous points that you're going to make if we're really going to get into the differences between men and women's rights and equality. I mean, like I almost commented on that. Was like, hey, I'm actually all for that. I'm all for equality. I'm all for the man actually having the same rights in the decision as a
Oh,
woman.
sure.
Because the way it exists today, or before this became such a hot topic, is if a man and a woman got together and were, I mean, I'll say irresponsible, but if they didn't take the proper precautions and she became pregnant, but he wanted the baby, doesn't matter if they stayed together or not. He could have had a standpoint of, I'll pay all the medical expenses. I will take full custody. I want to be a father, and we don't even have to be together. And if you're not ready for a child, no problem. Like,
I'll raise it.
I will raise the child. This is mine. You could sign over any rights. I won't come to you for anything. Would not matter. The man does not have a say, period. And conversely, which pisses me off in the just as much, if it's reversed and they were irresponsible or didn't take the proper precautions, and she became impregnated and she wanted the baby, but he didn't. And he said, look, I'm not ready to be a dad. We made a mistake and we got to figure this out. And she said, too bad. I want to be a mom and this is my child, and I'm going to have this child. He will be financially responsible for the next 18 years, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. So when we want to talk about actually like, oh, you're going to bring the men into the 10,000. Okay. Now you want to talk about equality. Now you want to talk about a man's responsibility. Like, it's crazy to me. So
at that point, it becomes your body, our choice.
That's
right. Like,
that's right.
And that was that whole, Bill Burr had this rant on his podcast about and basically laying out that same scenario you did, and then said, oh, what about my wallet, my choice?
That's right. That's right. Your body, your choice, my wallet.
Just that classic
that's funny. I haven't heard
Bill
that
Burr
one from
way.
him.
Who ironically, from somebody who probably, like, he's always been considered a liberal until the last few years.
Right.
But kind of like Joe Rogan was always liberal until the last few years.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is interesting in how much the talking points have changed. And like people have flip-flopped and borrowed from each other's camps on this stuff, because the argument, my body, my choice, was like, you don't get to make health decisions for me. Okay.
Right.
Now, traditionally, and I'm going to speak in some stereotypes here, but the people who would champion that phrase and that viewpoint would be a lot of the same people arguing for mandated COVID vaccines. And the people who used to say, no, not your body, your choice, because it affects other people and other humans, are now the ones saying, no, you can't tell me to get a vaccine because my body, my choice.
Right.
And so it's like crazy how these worldviews have just flip-flopped.
I saw.
And I'm like, is anybody else picking up on the irony?
God, I would hope so, Nick. I would hope so. Like,
it's just crazy.
We can't be the only ones. I saw a Jen Psaki, press conference or whatever, where somebody asked about that, and they were like, hey, how does what is President Biden's thoughts on the new abortion law in Texas? And she was obviously emotionally responding. She was upset,
Sure.
and this is an emotional topic for many people, so I get that. But it was, the president believes in women's rights and the women's right to choose and their constitutional right to make these decisions, and he was like, well, how does the president determine, like, or how did he say it? It was something like, how does the president oh geez, reconcile, I think is the word I'm looking for. How does the president reconcile his own religious faith in the Catholic Church and like what Catholics believe about the sanctity of life and all
Sure.
of that with that? And it's like she just reiterated the point. And he was like, well, what about the the life in the woman's body? And she said, well, the president's not going to give healthcare advice. And
Oh,
then
really?
right, and that like everybody's ears perked up. It's like, wait, what? The president's not going to what? What is happening right
You
now?
know,
And
she's
then
like, as those words are coming out, she's like, "Oh no,
yeah,
come back."
can I take him back? And then she did the other thing that I think happens a lot. She bashed the guy, the reporter who was asking that question because he said, "What about the life in the woman's body?" Who's talking about their rights, and she bashed him and said, "You're not a woman. You've never been in that position, so I wouldn't expect you to understand or have an opinion." And it's like we get into this when we run out of things to say, we start attacking, and it's like, no, you're not qualified to even have an opinion on the matter.
Yeah.
And that's what I see. That's what I see happening. What I loved about your setup there in talking about the students and how you would teach or even were taught when you were in school, on how to basically come up with apply critical thinking
Sure.
and take a topic and figure out where you're at on it. That's something that I advocate for. And I guess if I was going to have an opinion on this, and I'll talk about how I'm raising Liam. As Liam gets older and has opinions on things, and I try to do this as well, if I'm going to have a strong opinion about something, um, I'm going to challenge Liam like I would challenge myself to create an argument for the opposing side. So if
Hmm.
I'm really against abortion, the abortion law in Texas, and I'm buying into the man, it's disgusting and women's bodies and they have a right to choose, and this is abhorrent that a state would try to do this. I'm going to go down the rabbit trail to try and create an argument as though I was for the abortion law. And I think that when you do that, a lot of things happen. It forces you to approach something objectively, right? So if Liam comes to me one day and says, "I can't believe they're doing this. I think this is disgusting," I'm going to I'm not force him, but you know what I mean. I'm going to say, I need you to go and create an argument for or against whatever the opposing side is, and present it to me why that's a valid argument. I think it forces you to take the emotion out of it, take the narrative out of it,
Sure.
and figure out like what is my stance. And if I learn what the opposing side is and really try to understand what their argument is, does that strengthen or soften my stance?
Yeah.
And I think if we all did that more, we would have more reasonable conversations around these types of issues. It wouldn't just be battle lines in the sand. We would actually find commonality and be able to get to the root of some of these problems a little better instead of being swayed by whatever the political or media pushed narrative is at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
It's it's just it's so interesting because you hear this again with like the same crowd that would say healthcare is a right
yeah,
are
yeah,
the ones saying that like people who refuse the vaccine should be denied healthcare.
that's
And it's
right.
like
Yeah,
either
I'm a
it's a right
doctor,
or
and
it's not.
I'm not gonna take care of you if
Yeah.
you refuse the vaccine. Like what? What?
Yeah. And I feel like people are so like hypocritical in their viewpoints. And I'm sure I still am in some, and I try to, when I find those, I try to think through it critically.
Mhm.
Like the ivermectin thing, when I sent you one of those memes and you actually did a little research on it and we're like, okay, people shouldn't be administering it to themselves. And yet, but there are some doctors trying it because it has been approved for
Because
other viruses,
there
right?
are human approved versions of it that have
Exactly.
been known to,
And it's
and
like,
there's studies around it. It's not
if
like it's
you
that outside.
if you just take the meme culture out of it, take memes
Right.
out of everything and actually research it, then it was like, oh yeah. And that is case in point of why like I try to get information and
Yes.
have some opinions on things. And there's times where I feel like I'll admit I have an emotional reaction to some things
Sure.
where I don't
Yep.
like it. I can't argue the science of when a human life begins, but I can say
Right.
personally, emotionally, I don't like the idea of taking a human's life before they're given a chance to live it.
Right. Right.
However, I also can say I understand that there's a lot of points to this,
Yeah.
and you know that, and problems that would need to be solved if you were even going to roll something back. But
Right.
as a
But
general
people,
rule, with this thing with Texas, I don't typically like laws that make it easier to sue
sure,
individuals in
sure.
this sue happy culture. So I don't love that.
Yeah.
Um, I really only like laws that make it easier to sue big pharmaceutical companies, because
Right.
they're,
That's right.
and like companies like Monsanto, because they're always given so much cloud cover
Yeah, yeah.
uh, from all that. But like, I don't like that. But at the same time, too, this is the beauty of the states' rights things that I started to talk about, was that if you don't like it, guess what? You have an opportunity, vote in political people who share your values and can
Sure.
change the stuff back. And if you can't do that because you're the minority in your state, then there's other states that have laws and values that, and
That's
more
right.
people that agree with you. And you do, I know it sucks to just be like, well, like it or leave, like learn to love it or get out. And it's like, and that's not what I'm trying to say, but I do appreciate that. You and I have some common friends who are in the process of trying to move to like
Sure.
Florida, because Washington state values and laws and
Yeah.
governor infuriates them. And I'm like, that's the beauty. That is one of the beauties of this country.
I think
So
I agree, and you're right. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily would prescribe to the love it or leave it mentality, but I love that
only
we
about
have.
America.
I mean, I love that we have the freedoms here to do that, which I think is
Yeah.
what you're also highlighting, right? It's I think at the end of the day, um, you know, my point would be on any topic, don't buy in to the emotional narrative, but ask questions, right? Dig in, figure out if it's something you care about, research it, and then ask why you care about it, right? I think that if we all did that, again, it would help us create some commonality. It would limit us from reacting to the emotional narrative, and it would force us. It would become natural when we're presented with the emotional narrative. It would lead to more questions,
Yeah.
right? Which I think is an appropriate response. We should always be. So another one, and then we can move on to the next topic. But another one I'm seeing that's coming out all over the place is for all the people that think this abortion law is good, you all better be lining up to adopt these kids that are being born. It's like,
Sure.
okay,
Sure.
okay, but so what you're alluding to then is that it's not all about the unfortunate incest and rape cases,
Right.
and that you are admitting that there are
Yeah.
just unwanted children out there. And I think that should lead to questions to, why is the average adoption over $50,000 and
Yeah.
take up to 3 years in
Yeah.
America today?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't.
How many GoFundMe's are there for
That's right. That's
people
right.
to get adoptions,
To
right?
get
And
adopted.
and that's what I say is like, uh, I I could be philosophically opposed to the idea of abortion, but like also admit that like if we just stopped it, we don't have the mechanisms in place
Right. Right.
to provide better upbringings for these
And not only
these
that,
future babies. And I'll be honest, I don't want to adopt anymore. I don't want any more kids. So
I'm not
like,
opposed. I'm not opposed to adopting, but I would
you
go
can
so
have my portion then
I
too.
would go
John is
I
going
would
to
go even
adopt.
further. I would go even further and say it's not just about us not having the infrastructure in place to support that. It's that there is an infrastructure in place designed to profit,
Sure.
that we're essentially talking about now big pharma, right? That if we are actually considering making abortion easier for qualified families and less expensive, and removing barriers to entry for families out there that can't have children, that are saying don't abort yours, I will take the responsibility. If we remove those barriers to entry, we are financially impacting an industry that people are profiting from today, and
Yeah.
you are going to get resistance to that type of that. So it's like, don't buy in. That's why I say ask more questions. Don't
Yeah.
buy into the emotional narrative, because usually what you're going to find is there's something else involved, pulling strings. And if all I'm doing is forwarding memes as a, so that I can feel like I'm an
Yep.
activist,
Yep.
I'm not doing the issue the service that I think it deserves, if it's
And
something you care
and
about.
I would hope that people who are for and against abortion could agree that we need to look into making adoption a more affordable option.
Yes.
Anyway,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
Like, because we all want the same thing. We don't want there to be a bunch of children in the world who aren't given a loving, caring home to
Hey,
be
if
raised in,
if
right?
healthcare is a right, and I'm financially stable, and I can provide a good family for my children and others, but my wife can't have children anymore, which is fact, by the way. Ashley cannot have kids anymore, and we've talked about that.
She definitely shouldn't try to push any through that tiny body.
Well, that's the
Like, no
thing.
more.
She genuinely cannot. Like the doctors have told us, we've had multiple consultations, and it's not advised that we have children again. If we wanted to, right? And I can provide a good life for children that we could adopt, and healthcare is a right for everybody. Then if there's somebody who has an unwanted pregnancy that just cannot emotionally, financially, whatever, provide for that child, but doesn't want to abort it, why can't that person go through all of the expenses on my insurance?
Mm.
I pay into the insurance. Healthcare is a right. Why can't I put that person's medical expenses on my insurance?
Sure.
So that when that baby is born, that baby can come into a healthy, financially, emotionally stable household and raise the child. Why not? Why does it have to be 40, 50, 60,000 plus cash for me to even to have a chance, plus a 1 to 3 year waiting list? Like there's a profit machine that is at play here that is making things more difficult. So if we're really going to start asking the questions, and the people that are emotionally driven by this are going to say, well, you, all of you people that are for it, you better be lining up. Well, what if they are? What if they are, but you find out through that there's something else at play here? Are you going to be more for it, or not? Like, is this just another emotionally driven narrative that we're social media advocates about?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my
No,
that's my
I
10
agree, right?
cents.
Like,
My 10 cents on that.
yeah, you can't just draw a quick line in the sand and just say it's either this or this. There's
That's
so
right.
much more
There's so many
involved
other
in all
things.
this stuff.
So do research. Don't get bought into the narrative. Ask questions. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
The next one, which also can be another hot topic. Our buddy Jackson emailed in, and he said he wants our opinions on Jordan Peterson. What's your he has a couple. We're gonna end on the lighter one, but
Okay.
this one. What's your opinion on Jordan Peterson, Nick?
I brought his we'll bring his website up here just for oh, wait a minute. I killed John. Oh no.
I'm
Wrong
still
button.
here.
There we go.
You just can't see me.
There we go. So I brought up his website here. You know, he's had that, like, what was it, like it was 12 rules
12
for
rules
life or
for
something.
living. 12 rules for living. Now beyond order.
Now he's got 12 more. So
mhm.
God bless capitalism. Got to have the sequel. Oh, did I tell you that those 12 like would make your life better? Well, I
There's
came up with
actually
12 more.
24.
So nobody's upset, wants a refund that
Yeah.
you've been holding out on us, Jordan.
Hey, you guys have been following me for these 24. Guess what? It's now 36.
Yeah. So, okay, I have the only conversations I have heard from Jordan Peterson are either I was exposed to him through Joe Rogan's podcast.
Okay. Yep.
And so most of the conversations I've heard about him have been either the conversations he's had on there or other interviews, like that one where the person was twisting everything he said.
Channel 4
yeah,
News.
but I
They
hear
did an interview with Jordan Peterson.
I only go check that out because I heard about that on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Okay.
So just full disclosure, most of my introduction to him and knowledge of him has been framed in through what I've learned from him, but on his podcast. So I don't know what all of his beliefs are. Here's what one of my first like gut reaction on Jordan Peterson is I think he says a lot of things that people need to hear. Like when he, he talks about, just he challenges men to like step up and be leaders and, take that's all like, that's positive. I
don't even think it's just men. If you actually listen to his lectures, it's everybody.
Everybody
right? Benefits by all of us finding something, greater and bigger to live for and act, honorably and nobly. And and that society benefits as a whole if we all take on that mantle and
I
personal responsibility.
I don't think a lot of his viewpoints are as controversial as they get blown up to be.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's a psychologist, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's a clinical psychologist of like 30 plus years. It's been
Okay.
his whole life.
So the reason why he's been tagged as being so controversial and all of that is because one, he was vocal early in Canada. He's Canadian. He was
Mhm, mhm.
vocal against some of the like free speech and gender laws that they were making, where his whole point wasn't that he got pegged
People,
into making stances against like that he hates trans and all
I
that
can
that he's
comment. I can
but
comment on that. It came down to a law being passed. It wasn't passed, but I mean, this was the topic. If a law were to be passed that legally required you to refer to somebody by their pronouns, and that if
okay,
you didn't do that, you're breaking the law.
right,
And his stance was that that's a very dangerous precedent to set,
exactly,
to
because that
have the
creates
government step in.
downstream
Yes.
residual,
And
uh
and a
and that
lot
was
of
his whole
people,
point with it.
well, what was interesting, because I think a lot of the people that were labeling him weren't listening to his actual interviews, because he made it very clear. I've been a clinical psychologist for 30 plus years. I've had many patients, men and women, all across the spectrum that you could imagine. And if I have somebody in my lectures that wants to be referred to as a she, and they're a he, I'm going to refer to them as a she.
Right.
Just because that's the appropriate polite thing to do.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is the government mandating that as a law, that is a
Yes.
dangerous precedent. But people weren't listening to that. They were just saying he's against this, which makes
Yes.
him,
And so the reason he's so considered so controversial, I think, is because he approaches everything like a psychologist. It's
that's
fact.
right.
It's
That's right.
it's okay. We've got a theory, and
Yep.
so let's take this
Let's
hypothesis and
pick it
let's
apart.
test it and let's see where it
Right.
stands, right? And let's poke
Right.
holes in it and let's come out with whatever conclusion we come out with. And the problem is he makes factual points about emotional topics. And like
Yes.
you said, the people who already have an emotional response aren't going to go, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong in some of these. And this
Mhm,
goes both
mhm.
ways, right? This is
Oh,
like,
100%.
this is not like whether you're for
Both
it's not
sides
just
are
relevant to,
guilty of
yes, and not
falling
even
for the emotional narrative,
and
and
not even
not.
just on this topic, right?
That's right.
Like
That's
all
right.
topics. And
Yes.
there will be some, certainly there, I'm sure I could find some topics where I will have an emotional response
Yes.
and not be as likely, it would have to be pointed out to me that like, have you looked at that factually? No, I haven't. The difference
Right,
is a lot
right.
of people,
No,
they
I'm
just
just really
have that.
pissed off right now.
Yeah, they have that strong viewpoint. Jordan Peterson, like a clinical psychologist, says this. These are the facts. And you
Yeah, yeah.
go, well, that can't be because I don't like it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why he's so polarizing. Now, that being said, I haven't listened to everything he says. Maybe he's got some messed up things. I know he's on the carnivore diet. To me, I don't like that. I don't like his point about making the bed, John. I think that's stupid. I think making
Oh,
the bed is
I don't.
stupid. And
I think
here's
it's
why. I'm
why?
literally, the next time I come back to this bed is going to be to pull those covers right back off and get back in. It's from a lean process improvement perspective. It's inefficient and
Mm.
it's a process that you don't need. So I would disagree with Jordan Peter on that. But at the
Understand.
same time, like, so I haven't listened to everything. So
Okay.
he could have some wackadoodle thoughts out there. And I don't want to be on the
So,
record being like, oh, he's just
I
misunderstood.
don't think he does. I don't
And they're
mind.
like, he's for slavery, and be like, oh crap, I didn't know that.
No. I don't think he does. And I don't mind maybe being appearing a little more wackadoodle. I like Jordan Peterson a lot.
He
I would
sounds like Kermit the Frog.
I
And
would
I can't
I
stand
would
listening to him.
challenge I would
Well,
challenge
okay, well, mhm.
I would challenge anybody who is unfamiliar with Jordan Peterson. Go to YouTube and look up Jordan Peterson's Channel 4 News interview. It's 30 minutes long, but it is fantastic. And
Yeah.
watch that interview objectively, and try to listen to what is being said without emotional drive. And I think you will be surprised at what you take away from it. I've also read his book. I thought the book was really good. And funny story about that. I used to have a coworker of mine. He moved to California and is doing other things now. But he was very, very, I don't even want to say liberal, because I think we're talking an extreme. Like, this was the guy that would go to the Antifa rallies
Okay.
in downtown Portland,
Sure.
right? And so, as you could imagine, he and I are on different sides of those discussions
Sure, because
more times than not.
You'd be at the Proud Boys.
No, I would not. But you
Oh,
know, I am definitely more conservative leaning,
sure.
if we look at some of these issues. So we would get into these discussions quite a bit about political topics. And one day he saw that I had Jordan Peterson's book on my desk, and it was the 12 Rules for Living, or 12 Rules for Life. I'm not, one of the two. And so he started bashing Jordan Peterson as he's a racist, he's a, you know, misogynist, he's all of these, transphobic, he's all of these things. And I was surprised, because I watched his interviews, I've read his book, or I was in the process of reading it. I was like, I'm not picking any of that up. So what am I missing? Like, what have you found? What have you seen from him? What have you heard from him? And what I discovered is that nothing. He hadn't watched a single lecture. He hadn't
Sure.
watched an interview. He hadn't read a book. All he had consumed was other people's stances on Jordan Peterson through their content, their social
Sure.
media, their videos, whatever. And so it was fascinating to me. It's like, you have a really strong opinion about Jordan Peterson, but you don't know, it sounds like you don't know anything about him,
What
and
would
you've
be
never
funny? What would be
looked at
funny,
his own
John,
content.
is if he was like, "Well, look, John, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go check out. I want you to go on YouTube and find this Channel 4 interview, and you're gonna see
That's
just
right.
what a
That's
chauvinistic.
right.
What?
Yeah.
What if you guys were both like
And
pointing at each
we're
other?
using the same video, but we've come to completely
You
different
can't see
conclusions.
the other. Like, you can't see the like. Dude, that would be like the most stereotypical,
Well,
like, nowadays thing.
this was fascinating to me, because he said something that kind of opened up my eyes a little bit and led to some what I thought was really productive and fun conversations. He had made a comment of, if you go, like, I know enough to know that if Jordan Peterson is at, you know, a lecture or a rally or something, that the white supremacists are going to be on his side of the line, and that's enough for me to know that I'm on the wrong side. And I was like, well, that's really oversimplifying and dumbing down what could be complex issues, right?
Yeah.
Because I may think that America needs to do a better job of securing our borders against illegal immigrants. It stands to reason that white supremacists would agree.
Sure.
That doesn't mean
Doesn't valid. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't
that you,
null and
that
void the whole thing.
that thinking America could do a better job of securing their borders means you're a white supremacist. Like,
Right.
that's crazy. And so what ended up coming from that, which I thought was actually a lot of fun. And he didn't stay at the company for that long, so we didn't get to go down the road more. But
Wouldn't it be funny if it was like, because I fired him?
no. Yeah. He moved to another state, found another job, and it was all good. But what came from it was we started like a book club.
Nice.
And so I had him read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Living, and he had me read a book called The Inherent Investment in Whiteness.
I thought you were going to say the vagina monologues.
So probably would have been a better read, frankly. Well, so we read these books, and we would like assign each other a book, and we read them, and then we would get together and talk. And what I found was, you know, you're not going to change somebody's mind
With a book, right?
That's right. He didn't do a full 180, but he did recognize that, like, hey, there's some things he said in that book that I kind of, the hair stood up and I questioned a little bit. But all in all, it was like, did you read his book and walk away thinking he's a chauvinist, a racist? And it was like, no, I didn't. Okay, it's like we could all do a better job of again, not falling victim to the narrative that is being pushed, but doing our own research if it's something we care about. You don't have to research everything. That's insane.
Exactly. Exactly.
So my opinions of him have been very very good. Very favorable.
How about we just agree that people maybe could stand to benefit from doing some research and some honest
Yes.
reflection on the topics for
Yes.
which they're willing to comment on social
Right.
media.
Right. And am I about to forward this or hit send on this because it's the culturally appropriate thing to do, and I want the dopamine rush of seeing how many of my social circle are going to like, love, laugh, and react to my post,
Yeah.
right? What are we doing and why are we doing it? And if it's something you genuinely care about, do some research, strengthen your argument, be an advocate, right? And come to a discussion from a place of education. That would be my challenge for any and all of those types of topics.
Yeah.
Um, all right, man. Last one from Jackson, and this is, man, this is so much.
We're ending on the deep cut here. This is
That's
the
right.
deep one.
That's right. That's right. I saved the strongest one for last. This question is: why do you drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? Nick?
All right, Jackson, let's have some real talk here. Okay. If you have enough time to ponder these things, if this is what you choose to do and ponder in your free time, we need to have some conversation about some life choices.
Life choices, man.
Okay. I'm just saying, maybe it's time to get that Christian Mingle account fired up. He could have a girlfriend. I don't know. I haven't talked to Jackson in a while.
Oh gosh.
I'm just playing, Jackson. I love you,
Get
buddy.
a girlfriend. He's saying you got too much time on your hands.
Or a pet.
Jackson.
Maybe just a pet. Let's go let's start there. Okay.
What cracks me up about that response, Nick, is that I actually looked at his question and I researched it.
Yeah, of course you did. Because that's what I love about Jon. Is like Jon will not just take a gut react. He won't let anything like that just go.
Wait,
why?
Well,
let's find out.
Why do we drive on parkways and park on driveways?
I might have strong feelings about this.
I don't know. I don't know. And somebody asked me. Really, really interesting. I say a lot of things are interesting that are probably not interesting at all.
Look, Jon, if somebody is still listening to this episode an hour and 31 minutes into it, chances are they find things interesting that we find interesting.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so really interesting. And oh man, we're at an hour and a half into this. So yeah, this will be where we wrap it up. But really interesting. So the English language is stupid. I think we can just all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always make sense. But when I started diving in to try to figure out what's the origin of these words and why do we call a place where we drive a parkway and the place where we park a driveway, this is what I found out. Back in the 1800s, parkways were actually larger roads that went through public parks. And these roads were larger so that they would be perfect for carriages to drive on them. So you would say you're on the parkway because you're going through a park and a larger road designed to hold a carriage. Well, as time passed after the 1800s into the 1900s, and automobiles became a thing, the carriages were replaced with automobiles, but they were still considered parkways. And these were larger public roads designed for traffic, whether it be carriages or automobiles.
Like through the park?
That's right, through the park. But they ultimately morphed and kind of became this concept of a larger public road designed for traffic. And they would just call them parkways. Now the term for driveway was coined around the same time, or from what I could gather, I think it might have even been a little bit earlier. And these were specifically smaller offshoot roads off of the larger public roads. They were smaller offshoot roads that would lead to somebody's residence or their personal barns. And these driveways, as they were called, would be used for like pulling up next to somebody's house or barn and offloading material or people or cargo, loading on things, doing deliveries and drop-offs, whatever. And so what would happen is while these were started to be coined as driveways, which were these offshoots that led to somebody's house, they were also the perfect place for owners of carriages to park their carriages. I'm going to park it in my driveway next to my house. And so now, many, many, many years later, we drive cars on parkways and we park cars in our driveways. That's why.
This has been
the
Etymology
more
with
you
John
know.
Simmons. And in this episode of John Studies the History of Words.
Oh man. So as much as we covered, and thank you, Jackson, for giving us at least one that could not be such a heavy topic. The biggest takeaway I got that I appreciate is that we have friends and listeners who are reaching out and asking for content, right?
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
Above all of it, even if it's heavy topics, like, please keep reaching out, ask questions, let us know what you want us to talk about, give us the things that you care about, and we will give our honest unfiltered assessment of those.
What's funny is I've had some people say, like, man, I can't believe, you guys can be are you guys controversial or whatever, refer to, like, man, you guys are willing to put yourselves out there and be controversial. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like John and I are like moderates in most of our viewpoints.
Right.
That even the things that like somebody else would like vehemently oppose, we'd still be like, well, tell me more about that.
Sure.
It's like, but I guess that's the controversial thing nowadays is to actually have like a rational, like, let's stand in the middle and look at both sides and see if we can get somewhere.
That's right. If it's controversial for me to ask questions and to challenge other people to ask questions, I'm going to always be controversial, right? I don't think many things. I think there are obviously some things, but I don't think there's many things that are as black and white as society or the media or politicians or Facebook would have us think. And that if we don't make, or if we want to avoid making that mistake of turning everything into black and white and not realizing that we're all multiple, 50 shades of gray, if you will. But we're all these complex beings, and these are complex issues, and it's like if just challenging or bringing attention to that and saying let's pause, let's not react, let's ask questions and really do some digging to figure out what's the best path forward. Dude, if that's controversial, I'm going to be controversial. I just don't think it is. I don't think it should be.
No,
right?
I don't think so either. Like,
yeah,
have the conversations.
Yeah,
I think we could all do a lot better. Society would be a lot better off if we could just have some conversations.
Well, here's the tricky part.
Without the conversation in and of itself being labeled controversial.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part is if you're going to do that objectively and genuinely, you're going to have to be open to the fact that you might be entering into that conversation or that belief with bias that is inherently wrong.
Yeah.
And it is very, very, very difficult. It is easier to teach somebody something new that they've never known than to convince somebody that they were wrong. And that's a big part of the problem. But I think if we really are putting effort in to understanding other opinions and experiences in the world around us, and we're asking questions from that genuine place of curiosity, we have to be open to the fact that it could be wrong.
Yeah.
And if both sides can do that, I think across the board we become a better place much quicker than the path that we're on right now.
Boom. Mic drop right there. Right. I think that's the perfect note. I think that's the perfect note to end on.
Okay.
I like to do the slow mic drop. I do that in work on Teams sometimes. Like, I'm going to mic drop that.
Yeah. That's great. All right.
Okay, well, I think we're all good for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and we've gotten some positive notes from people too. Just enjoying listening to our nonsense.
Yeah, it's been great.
What we do. This is really just John and I recording conversations we'd be having anyways.
That's right. That's right.
We just have to schedule it. That's the only difference.
Yes. So scheduled hangout time.
Pretty much. This is the only way we'll actually like prioritize our friendship, because we're just too we're too introverted and too busy and like
yes.
So for the Jon and Nick show, I'm Nick.
I'm Jon.
And we'll see you next time.